Steve here this week.
All right.
I haven't heard from either one.
Yep.
I will check. If not, I'll send them a quick message. You guys can start, I'll send them a quick
All
message.
right, it's 6 o'clock. We will call the meeting to order. Councilor Haynes, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, so we have Hillary as the recording secretary today, huh?
Yes.
Yes. Would you like to call the roll, please?
Counselor Hildreth,
Present.
Counselor Susie,
Here.
Counselor Haynes,
Here.
Counselor Conan,
Here.
and Mayor Boards.
Here. All right. Staff in attendance, we have the city manager, Kirk Biotti, and Glenn Smith as usual. First up, we will get the presentation from the Public Works Department.
Nobody's here yet.
Nobody's here yet.
He is coming. So we'll,
Now's the time to cut it.
Yeah.
I can't do water, but
Yeah, I guess we could just move ahead to Water Department at the moment.
It's Ben Crawford, Superintendent, Laconia Water. Just here to present the Water Department budget. And I don't have a presentation, I'm just going through the budget book. So I think we start on page 88 is what I have. Does that match up with you guys? Yep. Perfect, all right. So 88 is obviously just the cover page. We'll go into a little more here in a second. Just kind of to give a little overview. The Water Department, obviously, is working with the Board of Water Commissioners, so we prepared this budget, or I prepared the budget for December, January, and did that at the board level, so that passed through our board unanimously, and then sat down with the city manager just to go over, a few things, and we're here to present it tonight. So the budget narrative there, I don't know, has anybody had time to read it, or do you want me to just kind of do some bullet points now, and then we'll go right through it?
Let's just do some bullet points, yeah.
So the narrative, you guys all know that as far as the water, we're treating the water from Paugus Bay that we pull up. We treat it, we distribute it to the city. There are parts of Guilford and Belmont that we hit as well. And then also the biggest one, the last line there, we do the water and sewer billing. So we do water and sewer billing. We're not part of the sewer enterprise fund, but just to note that there. And then, so this year, a couple highlights. So we had a rate increase that started this January 1st of this year. So this will be the first full budget year that we're realizing the increase from that. And then with that, we are not proposing a transfer from our savings account to our checking account. We had shown that in the last 2 or 3 years in our budget to basically say, to keep us in the positive, we would need to take some money from savings to checking. We've now made up that difference with the increase. A couple things about last year, or this current year that we're in. We did a lot of replacements of old water mains, so a little over half a mile there. Paugus Woods Booster Station, we did an upgrade there, which that was partnered between us, the sewer department, and 2 private developers in the area that were using that station. We have 2 raw water pumps down at base. One of those failed, so we ended up replacing that. So we now have 1 brand new pump, and the other one is still running fine. And then we're connecting to the city server via fiber network, which is mostly done. We're just buttoning up some things on both ends to make the connections there. So those are some things that we had, some in the budget, some not in the budget last year, but those are some of our bigger projects. And then this next year coming up, lead service line inventory, which you may have heard about that in our city, but then in general, we need to identify what the material is on every service in the city. So we had about 170 unknowns we're trying to identify and find out if they're a galvanized iron that might need to be replaced, and then we will work on a plan to replace those in the upcoming years. We're also looking at potentially changing our entire meter system, so that's the second bullet point there. These are kind of bigger items. We have about 7,000 meters currently, and we have put out a request for information, which we've received the results from for meter companies to see what is out there, and by the end of this summer into the fall, we're hoping to get out requests for proposals to find out what the cost would be, so when we look at the budget for next fiscal year, we can start to plug that in. Succession planning, we'll touch on that a little bit with salaries and whatnot. And then source water protection, which I know was one thing that came up at the, the objectives meeting that you all had a few months ago, I know we were talking about protecting the water, and we look at it from the water department side of protecting the quality of the water too, not just on the lake, but also the watersheds around it, and how can we react if there is an issue as well. So those are some things we'll be looking at. Questions on any of those? So I'll go through these. We kind of break up our budget into sections, so I'll basically do every paragraph, if you will. There's, revenues comes down to total revenues, additional income, and then I'll do the total additional. I won't go line by line. We'll kind of do each section for the sake of time. So right in the first one, or the very first line item, we put it that way for a reason. That's majority of our income right there. So we're looking at 3.25 million. That's our water billing, that we're sending out to everybody except for the municipal. That's a separate line item below. But this is all water that we sell. So that's where that rate increase showed. If you look at last year's budget to this year, that's up about 14%. So that's where we're seeing that increase. That's the 350,000 or so that we were hoping to see from the rate increase, plus a little more because we have increased units. So that's the up top. Total revenues are up 14% there. And then on the second half of our revenues, we have additional income. Nothing major there other than the one to point out, about halfway down, funds transferred from savings. So last year we were showing $368,000. If everything went per budget, we would have had to pull that much from our savings account into our checking account to make our O&M budget level funded. Thankfully, it looks like we're not going to have to do that, or not nearly that much. But again, with the rate increase, that number decreased to 0, so we're not showing any transfers. So overall, the budget came up to 3.61%. That's what our revenues, and also you'll see on the other side, the expenses, that's what we're looking for an increase this year. Any questions on any of the revenues? Okay. All right, so we'll go into expenses. I'm on page 90 now, I believe, 91, sorry. So salaries here, when we factored these, again, the first line is the majority of these. We break out the holidays, vacations, and sick time later on at the end of the year. When we did this back in, again, November, December, when we started it, that had a 3.5% cost of living in there, so it's actually higher than what we're going to be seeing with the 2.69. So there is actually a little cushion in there as well. We kept the same number. And then also we planned on step increases for anybody that was eligible. And we did have some changes in staffing in there. So last year we had our controller of 48 years retire. So we're still working on replacing that. But with that comes some shifting in duties and staffing. So we ended up having, if you looked at it from last year to this year, if everything stayed the same and she hadn't retired, we obviously would have been much higher. So we've actually dropped that number down with the changes in staffing, or proposed changes in staffing. We're in the interview process now, so hopefully we get somebody in here in the next couple weeks. So overall, salaries were up about 2.3%. So really not that much, especially being the 2.69 cost of living increase. We're actually less than that overall, and that shows where we decreased in other areas. This next one is a long one, so it actually goes on to the next page, but this is production expenses. So this is everything to do with our treatment plant and the tanks that they're working off of. Bottom line on this one, they went up about 7.5%, which is probably one of our highest if you look at these sections. Reason being, a lot of the power falls under them, and we just put in a flat 5% increase on power, not knowing what the rates will be come January. Is it end of this year, Glenn? We have power known through the end of the calendar year. So we don't know what the next 6 months will be, so we put in a 5% placeholder there. So that was a majority of that. And then just on the very last item, so it would actually be on page 92, our SCADA maintenance. You'll see that one jumped up considerably. Reason being, so SCADA is what runs everything at our plant, at all the stations. It's basically the heart of the treatment process and getting all the pumps running. Last year, we got a grant from the state to replace all of our SCADA computers. It was to the tune of, I think we replaced them for $45,000. We got a grant for 30 or 33, so we got the majority of that paid for. Reason it was so high to do that was because we had not kept up with maintenance on them over the years. So now that we are up to date at the plant, we have a maintenance plan in place that updates those every year. So that's $4,500 to do that. That's the majority of that increase is right there, because that's now a recurring cost. So we build it in year over year rather than once every 10 years do a full overload. Because what happened was we actually fell behind the times. IT could not update our computers because we weren't, up to snuff on cybersecurity. So in 22, I believe, we went offline with SCADA. And we're still offline to this day, but now that we have these new computers, we are able to go off or back online if we ever want to run remotely. So we're kind of building in those potential procedures, especially with the increase in pumping and development. We want to have that ability to run remotely if needed, but run safely, so we're not leaving anything open. So anything on production? All right. Moving to page 93. So distribution expenses, this is more out in the field, what you see. When we're fixing hydrants and water main breaks, more of the flashing lights and the stuff in the street, not necessarily the behind-the-scenes things. That only went up about 3%, and just wanted to note the maintenance of mains, so it'd be the third one down. We never really know where that's gonna be, because that's really based on what breaks, or where it breaks. You see, last year we had over $100,000 in that line item when we only budgeted 60, and other years we were down in the 20 to 30 range. So don't really know where that will fall, but just also for reference, this year we're currently over the 60 already, and we still have paving to do and some other work to do. So that's one number just to note that it may go over, it may not, but that's where it is for now. Billing expenses, so this one went up about 7%. The biggest portion of that was in the meter reading. You notice that went up a little bit, and then office supplies, percentage-wise, those were 15 and 14 respectively. We have some more service agreements on that, so as we've done any work with our billing software, that goes under there. That's, I think, $5,000 a year is a big chunk of that, and that's basically same as the SCADA. That's what we pay to have service all year long for that. Any questions on either of those, distribution or billing? All right, and then the next two are actually, they're both others, so they're kind of a little bit of everything. Just to note on other expenses, our third one down, medical insurance. We had a 17.4% increase. So that was what we had from Health Trust, who is our provider, so separate from the city. Anybody that doesn't know that, the water department does have a separate health insurance than the city, because I know that's been talked about at this level quite a bit in the last year or more. But even with that 17.4%, ours only showed up about 3% here on the budget. Reason being is we had some people that, when we basically look for a new employee, we put them in the budget as a family plan, so the highest plan that you could get. We actually had one person come in, and they were a health buyout, so it was like the immediate opposite of what you were looking for, so we had a little break there, which helped us out. But you'll notice a couple lines down, or actually the next line down, health buyout went up because we had more people go on to health buyout plan. So even though that one shows as a significant increase, dollar-wise, it's a help to
It's a
the department.
savings.
Yep. And the way we factor that is, our plans are 89% employer paid, 11% employee paid. So the buyout is half of the employer's portion of a single plan. Comes out to $7,500 or so a person. Let's see, other expenses I had. So overall, that one went up about 5%. The only other one to note that went up kind of significantly was audit expense, right in the middle. That's just due to going to a different auditor. The CLA, just a different rate, but obviously we've seen them be a little more productive in this first year that they've been with us, so hopefully we get what we pay for on that one and things keep going. Anything else on that one? Other expenses?
What, excuse me,
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
why did computer support go up 50%?
Oh, sorry, I missed that one. That is due to the fiber connection. So now that we have fiber, we'll be paying a rental on that, and that comes out to $9,000 a year. So that's the majority of that,
There you go.
which was not in this budget, which we actually will be paying some of it in the next couple months here. Well, this month, it's the last month. But yeah, that is now in there, where it was not before. Next page on 94, so other charges, there's nothing really major that jumped out there. We went up about 2.5%. Majority of that is depreciation, and that's just how things go with us. As we put in these new mains, we put in, over a half mile of mains, we now have to depreciate those. Any new vehicles or equipment that we purchase, any mains that are put in by other developers, so when somebody extends it, we take ownership of it, we have to then depreciate it, so that number continually goes up even as things drop off once they're fully depreciated. Obviously, what was put in the ground 50 years ago is less than what we're putting in today, so that number will continue to go up. So total expenses, right there, right in the middle, we're up at 3.61%, so we matched it to our income. So they're even, so we're basically showing if you look at the net income loss, $80. You know, if everything went 100% to budget, which it never does, but if it did, that's where we would end up, is at $80 in the positive. And the rest of that, a lot of that is factored in kind of as you go through, you know, carryovers, capital budget, that's coming forward. The next page will be capital. So any questions on the O&M budget before we move to capital? So next page is the last one of the water departments. So this is our capital plan. Again, doesn't always go perfectly line by line what we think we're going to do. We try our best to match with Public Works, what streets we may be looking towards, or at least have enough funding in there that we could drop off one of our streets and jump onto one of theirs. But I'll just go right through from the top. Again, I won't go necessarily line by line because a few of them we see each year. So pump, distribution, and meter, those are all ones we just do year over year that we're continually upgrading hydrants, we're continually, you know, replacing pumps, and we're continually adding meter reading, which we generally had a meter reading and a meter upgrade. We removed the meter upgrade out of there because we are going to be looking for a whole new meter program, so we didn't want to factor in putting new meters in at the current company, knowing that we may go to another one. Didn't make sense to put in census meters if we end up going with Camstrup or Badger or whoever we may land on. All right, computers and software, again, that's another recurring one as computers and iPads, tablets are dated. We have a running tally from IT. They let us know which ones we replace, and we stay up with that. SCADA system upgrades, so I mentioned the SCADA maintenance before. That was for all the stuff at the plant, which was new and redone. Now that we have the plant redone, we're looking to kind of move to the stations. We have 7 booster stations, all that have SCADA equipment, some newer than others, but the majority of them are 20-plus years old, so that equipment is looking to be replaced. So we're trying to knock off 1 or 2 stations a year in the capital budget, separate from maintaining what we currently have. Treatment plant exterior, this is one that we've put in a couple years, so we're looking at 3 major projects up there. We've had issues with the roof leaking, so we're looking at, is it a roof repair versus a roof replacement? The plant was built in 1989, so most of this stuff is original from 1989. It's 30-plus years old. Paving at the parking lot up there, and then also a retaining wall in the back. We're starting to lose the slope behind the building, and we're now down to a couple feet of earth between slope and the building being exposed, so we want to build that back up. Pressure reducing valve and chlorine analyzer, those are again some ones that we've had in a couple of years. So at the different stations, we have these different components. We just want to replace these aging ones before they fail on us, and then we're in a bind. Okay, all right. Okay. Fire alarm system. So when we went through and did the master box removal, if anybody remembers that, everybody in the city took their master boxes offline, went to a radio system. We realized 2 of our 3 buildings that have fire alarm systems were very outdated, one of which was 1989 at the plant, and the other one was about the same era at the Union Avenue building. So we got some rough quotes, and they were in the $20,000 range, so we put in 50 to get those both taken care of to get back to life safety where we need to be. Treatment plant vehicle, we now have 6 people at the treatment plant, and we have 3 vehicles, so it's basically just another vehicle in there when they make runs to Concord for sample drop-offs or when they're going to do their station rounds. If 2 or 3 people are out, then anybody left at the plant is stuck without a vehicle, so we're just trying to get another one up there, whether that is taking one of our other ones, moving it up there, and then getting a new one, but we put it in there for that. So it's an additional vehicle, not a replacement, I guess is what I was trying to say. Briarcrest Hut rebuild is just a small structure that we would probably rebuild in-house that sits over some monitoring equipment. So we would build that either in place or on a skid and bring it over there. Source water protection, this is one I was talking about earlier. We wanted to put some money in here to do kind of just a generic study of what can be done if there was an accident or an issue on the water. What can we do to react to it? And or what can we do to prevent those things from happening? You know, not necessarily the spills, because you can't prevent those. I mean, there's boats, there's gas stations, those things are there, but how can we react to issues that occur from that? And then also the environmental concerns, what's coming in from the streams and the runoff. So we've been working with Lake Winnipesaukee Alliance, DES, we've been working with all these people to just kind of get everyone involved and see what we can do to, you know, make the best of what we have without hindering anybody on the lake either. Weir Station upgrades, as I was mentioning, a lot of our systems are dated. The Weir's pump station, which is on Weir's Boulevard on the left as you go up, that's 1993 it was built, so most components are original to that. So we're looking at replacing pumps and motors specifically. We did some the VFD, which is the drive for the motors, we did those a couple years ago. We did the roof a couple years ago, so we're looking at getting the rest of the stuff done and get a generator for that station, because currently we have to pull one to it, so we'd like a standby one. Next one, water trailer. That was going to be to basically wet down roads when we're doing construction, but I scratched that from my list because since we did this list, the fire department is potentially giving us their old tanker truck, I believe it is, as of July 1 when they figure out their budget and carry it over. It's basically a 1,000 or 2,000 gallon tank, 1,000, that we would just transform into a water trailer, but it'll be drivable. And then the new dump body on Unit 8. Unit 8 is a 1-ton dump truck that we use for kind of run around stuff. It's one of our plow trucks in the winter that has the sander in the back. It's a 2010 truck with 18,000 miles on it. So rather than try to get a brand new truck, we're looking at putting a new body on it because the body has, or the dump body has rotted out and been repaired and welded, and it's got all kinds of plates of steel in there. So we're just looking at getting a new dump body for it and keep that truck running. And then the next two are the projects, which are kind of ones that we have put in there that if Public Works does not have anything that we participate in, if there's no streets that we need to do the water main on, these are two streets that we can go to as a department in-house and replace these lines. I just threw the dates on there. One is 1937, one's 1915. So they're older pipes. We know they've had issues. Opeechee is one that we kind of put in there that if we go with it, we would start it this summer. After July 1 when school's out, we could get in there so we're not interfering with school, and then the Woodland Butler can happen anytime. Any questions on capital or anything? Because that is the end of my presentation, if you will. So more than happy to answer any questions, or if I don't know the answer, I'll get back to you if I need to.
I have a question.
Sure.
Mr. Mayor. I see you have a revenue of $100,000 in interest.
Yep.
So how much are you carrying in the bank right now?
In the bank right now, because I knew that might come up. As of our last meeting on May 18th, we had $2.1 million, which comes out to 52% of our expenses, so 6 months expenses, which is what we have talked about. At this level, I know there's some new members to this. Actually, I think we might be the only new one, but obviously I've heard from the board side.
So,
Go ahead, yes.
oh, keep going.
I'll say, when we looked at the rate increase last year and when we've looked at it kind of going forward, we've been trying to keep 6 months of operating expenses on hand. In the event that something catastrophic happens and we need to keep going, we want to have 6 months of operating expenses to continue on. So that's what we've been trying to keep. That's what we've been advised to keep. And we've stayed with that, and that's why the increase was in place to stay at that number rather than drop down.
I'm just trying to do the math. How you collect $100,000 in interest on $2 million? And, I mean, I don't get that out of the bank on anything. I'm just trying to figure.
Right now, so the Bank of New Hampshire, our checking account is at 3.5%, and the PDIP, our checking account is at 3.6. And I did that based on what we have kept in there over the past couple of years. I mean, we saw 126,000 last year with the same amount of money in the bank. So I didn't go the full amount, knowing that the rates may change. I didn't want to go to 130 and say we're going to do it. So I brought it up, though, because we have been exceeding what we've been budgeting.
Okay, and the only other thing that I saw, there was a number, but when I made notes on.
Yep.
You've got revenue from the Acme building.
Yep.
10,500, I believe, but then you also have costs to maintain it of 5,000.
Yes,
So it ends up to be a net of 5,000.
correct. Yep. Majority of the 5,000 is taxes. I think we're around 4,000. And then the 10.5 is the rent for the building.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Seeing none, thank you.
All right, yeah, thank you. And if anybody thinks of anything else, feel free to reach out.
go backwards, we can go back to the Public Works Department. No.
We going to go backwards for me. Good evening. We're going to try and get through this. We've got about 40 slides. It's 12 or 13 less than last year, but we'll try and move right along. Interrupt me as you see fit, and any questions you may have, I'm happy to try and get you those answers, okay? So we're going to talk about Public Works as a general department. You know, some facets of the new finance software have helped me look at the different departments within, so are they divisions? Different divisions within the department. And so based on that structure in finance is kind of how we've been looking at things within and also structuring the budget there. So I want to give you an update on personnel, our general operations. We'll go through private roads briefly, and then we'll have the divisions of solid waste, capital improvement program, ISF, and the sewer fund, okay? So as I said, we've kind of restructured some of these accounts, primarily with utilities, really putting things where they belong. We like to spend the money where, we want to budget for the money where we end up spending it, right? Inflation has affected all projects within our budget. Equipment, materials, etc. DOT has found since 2022 a 52% increase. That's about 12.5% annually for this next fiscal year here. Steel, so bridge work being the most expensive because it involves more steel. We don't see a lot of steel on our roads, but still asphalt is almost 10% increase for the next year here. Salaries we've caught up on, but now we have those expenses that go along with it. Like I said, other utility expenses, repair parts, and there's some soft costs associated with inefficiencies, as in not being able to do not being able to be efficient with projects, maybe the way we would like to be, just because of where we're located, what we're able to do. I'll say on the flip side, though, we were able to be very efficient with the work that we all did over by Morningside, with the water work that we did, the sewer work we did, the drainage that we did, all underneath the road. So that felt very efficient, but you're not always able to do that. So the highway department is fully staffed. For the first time in a long time. It's fully staffed in highway. Sewer is down a pump station assistant. We had 2 chief operators for many years, and it was done that way to basically be more attractive as a position due to salary. Now we're going to be bringing in a pump station assistant. We have our first interview scheduled tomorrow. Fully staffed in fleet maintenance. Solid waste, engineering is currently fully staffed. We have a new staff member who's our construction inspector, but our surveyor, Craig Borgeson, who's been with us over a decade, is going to be retiring this summer, and I will miss him a lot. We just hired a new administrative secretary. Her name's Heidi O'Connor, and she started about 3 weeks ago. She's picking things up very quickly. And then we are also short an assistant director. Overall, we've got 28 of 30. So we're going to first get into budget here for the general fund portion being DPW. So overall, we're seeing about a 5.7% increase throughout the whole department. And then I wanted to break out those divisions below that we were talking about earlier. So, you know, we have DPW general, city engineering, highway maintenance, winter maintenance, and closed landfills. We also have, I'll come back, drainage, street lighting, parking and traffic, signs, road acceptance, boardwalk, and tree work. So where you're seeing some of these increases here is in DPW general. You'll see though the winter maintenance went down. It's because we were previously budgeting for salaries in winter maintenance when it was always being spent out of DPW general. So we put the salary budgeting for that. So that's some of the cleanup you'll see there. The net is 5.7 increase. But some of the things that have gone down, winter maintenance, closed landfills, a little bit of everything on this page, right? You know, drainage here is not what you think of like a big drainage project. It's, you know, when we need to buy catch basins, small oddball items, 200 feet of pipe, et cetera. You know, using some of what was remaining in drainage improvements in the capital program, we were able to stock up on pipe, so we're good for the next year. We took a really good inventory of all of our iron structures in the yard, and we've got about $150,000 worth of iron in the yard right now. So we spent another $7 grand on top of that to get the mixed match pieces, and now we're good there. Any questions so far on these categories?
Yes.
I have one question. Probably the city manager picked it up. You said you have a surveyor that's retiring.
Yeah.
Is there any discussion or review of contracting that requirement, or is that really needed constantly?
So we internally refer to him as the surveyor. He's technically engineering technician, and he does a lot of different things, and he does them very well and efficiently. His background was surveying, which kind of plugged him into that. When we do need, because he's not a licensed surveyor, right? When we do need licensed surveying, we have a third-party contract, and we go out for that. Yeah.
Thank you. That answers the question. That's where I was coming from.
Winter maintenance, salt prices going up like everything else. Overtime is flatlined for $95,000. Outside contracts have not gone up in a couple of years. We blew through this year like everybody did in the state. Outside contracts covers those contracts to do schools and some city parking lots and things like that. So the intention behind the budget, right, is to maintain level funding. You know, beyond that, we've got things like signs, pavement markings. You know, we're trying really hard to dive deep into the inventory and be creative. You know, the signs that we made for the social district were all recycled signs, as an example. You know, bigger signs that were derelict, and we just trimmed them to size and made them work. You know, so we're trying to get really creative with that. Same thing with painting. Tree removal, can't really be very creative with $5,000. You know, we use it as we need it. And then, you know, like I was saying earlier, as far as stormwater, drainage, things like that, we have materials on hand, you know, outside of maybe some more mortar and other consumables to handle quite a bit in-house as we need to. I'll say that the team right now has been really pumping along, doing structures, you know, really proud of how many structures they're getting done in a week, or how many tons of asphalt they're getting done in a week. They did 20 tons of asphalt pothole repairs last week, you know, between Tuesday and Friday alone. So they're feeling really good about that. Of the 3 landfills, 2 are capped. The third one is, it's a long process to get it permitted to get capped, and that's ongoing. This is a quick summary of private roads, which are in the Accept As Is program. I know you're all very familiar with that. We are keeping tabs on it, and here they are. far as capital improvement, wanted to get into some of the history here, as far as, you know, what inflation has looked like over the course of time and how it may affect us here. You know, here's some of the projects we've done in the past, just to give you an idea of what we've done over the last 10 years here. As far as large bonded projects, you know, we haven't, we had the 2024 transportation bond, which was about $3 million. You know, we did some bridge work, Appleton, Old North Main. Appleton and Old North Main were both full box out reconstruction projects, slow, expensive, extensive. For the next 10 years here, this is DOT's 10-year plan. They update it every other year. I've updated some dates on here. These are projects I'm working on very carefully. Centenary Ave Bridge is, you know, that's the challenge there, to speak about that bridge for a moment, is that it's at 17 and a half feet of clearance. The next closest bridge is also 17 and a half feet of clearance. And DOT is pushing their 22 and a half foot clearance criteria on bridges. So that means dropping the track 5 feet. We finished the engineering study. It means dropping the track 5 feet for about 1,500 feet. So we kind of like, I said, I know we talked about this 18 months ago, but can we pick it up again? Because maybe they'll just revisit that clearance idea if they know it's going to cost them over $1 million to make it happen. Langley Cove Bridge should be going out to bid any day. That's a fall of this year project, just after Labor Day, full bridge reconstruction over in Langley Cove. It's a little over $3 million. That consists of, it's right next to the Brady Sullivan development, right next to our sewer pump station. There's gonna be new water main, new sewer force main, some gravity sewer, drainage. It's a nice project. We'll be closing down the boulevard for that. We have to relocate poles, et cetera. The Elm Street TAP project is the 10-foot wide multi-use pathway project going from Franklin Street to Hickory Stick past the school. So the 10-foot pathway would be on the left side. That's through the engineering study phase right now. Also, we have some grant money through HUD and FEMA. So the downtown pedestrian bridge, you know, we applied for that grant in March of '23. We planned on inflation, not 52% over 4 years. So we're trying to figure out ways to either ask for more money or trim scope. So that's, we punted that a year. We have, I think, another 5 years on top of this to actually complete the projects. We've got some time to figure out how to make it happen correctly. And the same thing with the FEMA project. That's also a little over budget, and we're working through that process to receive additional funds for that. Speaking of roads, and on the capital side, just a couple of years ago, I think I presented on this now. Originally, this was $52 million over 10 years. That included DOT projects, things like that. This is a living, breathing document that we have and work with. But I wanted to give you a snapshot of this here. So if you're looking at this, you've got projects, details of the projects, how many miles, what year we're projecting to do it, what is the value to be bonded, how much of that may be to go towards roads or drainage, how much for engineering, and then there's also on the right-hand side, the blue and green columns for being projects that the water department and sewer department would also participate in. So again, this is what needs to happen over the next few years. So it's a large dollar amount, but if you look at some of these projects here, you know, we've got Endicott Street water main extension due to contaminated wells from the Morn Road landfill, New Salem Street reconstruction, which may not be as big of a priority today as it was a year ago. Then you've got a large list of red list roads. What we call a red list road is effectively a road that doesn't make sense to put money into the pavement because it's going to degrade and fall apart in 2 years. It really needs something more significant like a reconstruction or a reclaim. And there's more on that list. Some are much larger. You know, any road that like a pickerel pond, a hillcrest, a Paugus Park Road, you know, that's going to be $1.5 million, $2 million to do the project, you know, isn't to be performed underneath the road program, which is, say, $1 million a year. You know, it's a bonded project, it's a dedicated project, requires engineering and planning. So other things we manage here, we have different ADA intersections. Quite a few of them have been completed. You'll see here below that a few of these are going to be kind of tag teamed with some of the state school development offsite improvements. A few may not. So as we get closer through that development, we'll determine, you know, what is truly going to just be solely on our list versus the shared list. A few of them there are also going to be happening, you know, 8 years from now when the DOT does the Union Ave project. That'll cover some of Busy Corner, Guilford Ave, areas like that. You know, this was last year's numbers, but they're still very valid, right, as far as what we have as a backlog in road maintenance. So real quick for some of you, we do an annual road inspection program. They drive around with a cool car. It's got cameras and lasers and, you know, whistles and all sorts of stuff. And it drives around and scans the road. We do half a city a year. And it gives the road a rating from 0 to 100. 100's a brand new road, and we try and maintain a number of 80. That's the balance number that is most cost effective. So, you know, if a road is a 60, meaning it's got some cracks and some waves to it, you're not going to give it a full reclaim to bring it to 100. You can give it an overlay and bring it to an 80, right? So there's some of that. We've got a 40-page printout on all of our roads. And so as we try to be efficient, cost-effective, we look at some of the roads on that list and compare it to inspections of infrastructure under the road, and that's how we come up with that. But yes, overall, you've got 64 roads with an RSR of under 50, which means it needs a reclaim or more. And then what we're finding too, though, is that, you know, maybe there's a reason why somebody didn't pave it 10 years ago. It's because the drainage is bad, or there is no drainage. It needs engineering, it needs structures and pipe and curbing and et cetera. So it ends up being more than just reclaim it and pave it, you know. But these are facts. So, you know, we're familiar with the impacts of accepting private roads. I guess to put a finer point on it, if we already have a backlog and we're taking more roads, we increase our backlog, right? You know, there's different ways to accept these roads. Betterment process would keep things on an upward trajectory. That's it on the general fund side. That's engineering, roads, highway. Any questions on that before we get into solid waste here? If you think of anything,
So we're 20-something million dollars behind in road repairs at this point.
yeah, it's more than that actually.
23, yeah, I think, yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
He told us 2 years ago, I think you said, Nate, a couple of years ago, we're at 34 million, is what
So
you had asked for. You had told us.
That's right. So it's a little, that's the number to bring it up to an 80. As far as roads that need work right now, the ones that are under a 70, it's your 23 and a
Have
half.
we looked into any federal help with this as far as grants or any state help?
Oh, yeah.
Because I mean, I don't even know where we're gonna come out with money like that to get our roads where they need to be. And every day I'm getting other complaints about our roads. And I mean, I just got a text earlier today about a few spots. And I mean, we have to figure this out some way, somehow.
Yes. That report that showed the full breakdown of 18 million over to 3 years, there was a lot of time and effort that went into that to try and come up with those kind of solutions to really understand what the real scope was, and how to be efficient with what we have. as far as federal, state money, you know, we're seeing most of it in the bridge program, which I thank them often for. You know, we're paying 20% on a $3 million project that we need, you know, that feels good. You know, we work well together, but outside of that, if you're, the TAP program is an example, where there's a project, Elm Street, it needs a box out of that road. And so you think we could wrap that in with the TAP project, but the TAP is the transportation program. So it's really covering just the pedestrian improvement. So there's grants for things like, you know, economic gain and pedestrian improvements. You know, that's where your grant money goes, or for, you know, health and safety, maybe water or sewer, but for strictly road maintenance, it's not there.
Anybody else? All right, go on, sorry.
Sure.
I'm just trying to find solutions to, I mean, that's
It's a huge,
insurmountable amount of money, and I don't know how we're ever gonna get the roads where they need to be.
I know that Nate had gone, may I?
Of course, yeah.
I know that Nate had gone through and presented to us a list of all the roads and, list of all the roads and numbers, and he had said, I think it was over 7 or 8 years, you were like 30-something million dollars. And, you know, we should start thinking about planning for it, where to come from, and all of us are saying, no idea where that's gonna come from, okay? Especially, and we all know, the other monkey that's out there we gotta handle is DPW facilities.
yes.
And that's probably as much as that, if not more. So, you know,
Yes.
we
Councilor
got some
Cronin.
real
Oh, sorry.
challenges ahead coming to us.
Yeah, we do.
Thank you, Nate, I'm sorry to.
Councilor Cohen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to touch, before we leave roads, on, you had mentioned earlier at a meeting that you're looking at advanced technology for patching roads. And that's not here yet, correct?
No.
But is that something that is still in the near future?
Yes. Yeah,
So,
yeah.
and I mean, that just points to being proactive in trying to maintain the 80s that we have, or the 70s that we have in a road score. Is that gonna make us more efficient in keeping them above par?
It's not gonna raise the ratings, but it'll prevent them from getting down lower faster, right? Is kind of the intention there, kind of like crack sealing a road, you know, keep the water out from underneath the road. So you have a brand new road surface that's smooth, water rolls off the top. Once you get cracks, it gets into the road and start washing out fines. Then you've got voids and movement to the road, and then water getting in and heaving, and it just spirals. So what you were talking about, it's called infrared heating. I haven't got a quote on it yet that I like, but I know what kind of product I'd like. You know, we're talking probably $12,000 plus a trailer to get into it, but what this will facilitate, the intention behind it is that this is used in the winter time, in addition to, like, we could have used it a few times already this year. So during the winter time, plants are closed, you have to put cold patch in a spot. Doesn't hold, they end up having to, you know, put cold patch in one particular spot maybe 6 or 10, 15 times in a winter, right? And then it's just moving off the road, getting into the drainage system, you know, spoiling the edge of the road. So what this does is it heats the road up slowly to 300 degrees, makes it a molten material again, and then they basically, you know, rake a perimeter, and then there's a infrared hot box where you can put, you know, bricks the size of shoe boxes of asphalt in there, and it'll fall through the bottom into a hopper, and then they can put a hot mix in. You know, is it as good as a brand new road? No, but it will last years, right? And then they don't have to come back. It may take twice as long as a cold patch, but if they're only coming to do it once versus 10 times, there's a level of efficiency we'd feel really good with. You know, sometimes, Ben's still here, not to throw water under the bus, but water gates are a challenge, right? I mean, it's the most challenging thing we deal with when paving a road, like a new road, is raising the water gates up and having them stay where we tell them to stay. Oftentimes they'll settle, maybe 3 out of 10 times. So, you know, in a case like that, it's a brand new road, but now you've got a half-inch dip over the water gate. What would be nice is if you put a 2-foot heater over it, heated the material up, worked it up again, rather than having a saw cut, right? That's kind of the advantage, is now you don't have a saw cut line, you're putting cracks in a brand new road. Instead, you've got a welded joint. So there's a little bit of art form to it, so there'll be some training, and, you know, again, it's really to preserve the road and to make the time that we put into it more meaningful.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Yes,
To his question? So I might be a little bit, I could call you tomorrow, but I want to follow up with it publicly. So is the hot box system that you're using now different than what you've used in the past?
So the
Because I reported out that it was new. I guess I realized it wasn't the infrared after you were talking, but that seems different because even though there's a lot of places to fix, I have heard really good results on what you're doing. I just didn't, is that new too then?
No, we have a
Then it's being
3-ton.
done differently. 'cause
We have a
it's
3-ton
working
hot
well.
box right now, and you know they go to Pike in the morning, and they load it up, and then they keep going until it's empty. That one is propane fired. It's working a lot better because we put about $1,500 into it, a new igniter system, new computer system. You know, basically it was faulty, and you know, a few of us guys got together and like, we need this thing to work. Like when we have a nice day, we want to go, we need this. That is good for, you know, go get 3 tons, keep it hot. You can take old material and heat it up. Doesn't work quite as well. With this infrared system, it's much, much smaller. You know, you'll put maybe, you know, 2 shoe boxes in at a time, and then it takes 30 minutes, it falls to the bottom, and so basically you just kind of keep feeding it, almost like a wood stove, right? So you keep feeding it in that sense, and that takes 30 minutes to heat up in that sense. So that's really for, hey, we're gonna go for a few hours and hit some of these bad spots, versus let's get some volume down. The guys, you know, no matter who's doing it, the work itself, you know, is putting in a full day. I know that we've got some of the young guys on the crew right now, who've are really breaking a sweat out there.
Councilor Susie.
I thought we had something a couple of years ago on filling in the cracks. We had some company that was trying out something here in the city. It was up on North Main Street for a while. That was like a liquid system, I believe, or some kind of.
On like a
liquid.
wand?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's your commercial crack sealing, and we didn't do it in all of 25 because it was 150 grand, and we wanted to spend it on asphalt.
Okay.
And we haven't done it yet this year either for the same reason, but we really need to on, you know, some of our heavily traveled, expensive streets. Maybe it's not the full 150, but, you know, get Union Ave, you know, things like that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, going from something that I'm very comfortable in into something I'm less comfortable in, let's talk about solid waste. I'm less comfortable in it, it's very complicated, is the finest way I can put it. But in essence, you've got a transfer station, and the fees there pay for the cost of operating and disposing of the solid waste brought to the station by customers. The fees for customers bringing solid waste to the transfer station from outside the city, they pay a slightly higher rate than those generated in the city. Property taxes pay the cost of collecting solid waste at the curb and disposal of the collected waste. So we have various contracts in dealing with this system. Casella does the curbside collection in the cans. CPI is the company that trucks the solid waste from the transfer station to the landfill in Rochester. I don't know if you guys were aware, but we had to shut down the construction, demolition, debris collection at the transfer station for about 36 hours. It was a real problem. They didn't have enough trucks. And right around that same time, we were not the only ones. There were many transfer stations that were no longer accepting, but they got it back open in about a day and a So certain items here are commodities, prices go up and down because of that. So you're trying to budget and project on, things in a level that an economist would specialize in, right? But typically, recycling hovers about $120 a ton. Disposal at the transfer station has gone up about 5.5%, which is not insurmountable. Just looking again as solid waste as the department, these would be the divisions within there. So you've got the transfer station. We cut that down, 38,000. Curbside collection has gone up 260K. Overall here in solid waste, you've got a 6.8% increase. So some of these charts are a little dated, but they give a good picture here. Demolition debris, surprise, it's continuing to rise. It's continuing to go up. A lot of demo. We've all seen it. We're hearing about it. It's continuing to go up. Household waste is going down, a little bit down. Recycling is going up. Those are good trends, especially with the increased population that we have, right? These are just ratios of that same information. Questions on solid waste? Yeah.
Right, can we stop there for a second? This is more for the city manager. Last year, didn't we sign a new contract with Casella and all this and that for a couple, 3 years? I
It
know,
was either last year or the year before.
right,
Yes.
but this is what this falls into?
Yep, yep. that's
Okay,
all
so
part
this is
of
what
it.
was projected?
Yeah,
basically.
like, I was just gonna make a comment on that. These are very rough estimates. We do try to do, balance these out over a number of years and forecast them out to what they're gonna be. But all of a sudden, everybody decides to really go crazy this year on recycling, so that goes way up, and our trash rate goes down. Or everybody, decides that we wanna start doing more projects around their house and our demo goes up. We really try to do we forecast out over the few years, but it's an estimate.
Okay. On the demo, don't we charge for demo?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so the revenue should be going up in that area.
Yes.
Okay, I was trying to make a comparison because that's what you were talking about, household trash has gone down, but demo's gone way out. So our revenue should be coming up on that, but we pay more for demo.
It's
Between
offsetting
hauling and
cost is
getting rid
basically
of
what
it,
it's
right?
doing. Yeah, it's offsetting.
Are we covering the cost?
I think so.
Yes. Yes, we are, but there is also probably in July, probably the beginning of August, we will be coming back. We do have some updates that we need to make to the whole solid waste ordinance, including some fee stuff. Same thing we bring every couple of years, so, to continue to make sure that we're offsetting costs as best we can.
Yeah, some of the fees are increased to us twice a year, January and July, and another contract is October of that year. So it's the challenge is kind of racking and stacking those alongside one another for projecting.
And one more question.
Just to interrupt you, Council, revenue on page 13 does show our estimated increases for next year
Okay.
for revenue.
And we don't use the, what do you want to call it? The furnace in Concord anymore, right?
No, we do not.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't think of the name of that one.
That shut down, I thought.
Did
Yeah.
it shut down? Oh. No, we go to the landfill in Rochester.
Right, right.
Yep.
I thought, and I know you mentioned that earlier, but I also know for a while we were using that other.
No, they shut down and we actually got some money back out of them when it was done and that we moved on.
Any other questions? Okay. Sanitary sewer fund. This will be interesting. So we are projecting our expenses outside of capital expenses to be only a 1.1% increase. It was challenging. We did that because we have no capital. We have no funding currently for capital projects. Below here are those divisions within the sewer fund. I need to give you a little history on how capital has been funded for the last few years in the sewer department. So I started in November of '22. One of the first tasks I had was to work on the sewer rate increase model. It had been presented here by Underwood engineers to be something like 18% one year, 21%, and then 19%. Didn't go over very well. That projection, though, was to maintain a certain cash balance and to maintain the necessary funds to execute capital projects. So instead, we did small rate increases for 10 years. This year, I think, was 7, and then after this year, it'll be 5% annually for the next 5 years. That gets us by, but the caveat was that the sewer department was instructed to take a $3 million bond to use over 3 years. So instead of raising the rates appropriately to pay cash, we took out a bond. That bond has been exhausted, and now we need to continue on with capital projects. You know, I agree in concept with the water department, you know, trying to have 6 months of, you know, expenses on hand. That would be, for the sewer department, about $3.5 million. Right now, we've got a little over $2 million, I think. But we're going to be requesting to draw down $1 million off of that, that fund balance, to execute capital projects. We are planning on $1 million of projects this year, but we're not going to spend it just because we have it. If we can stretch it out into next year and do a carryover, that is perfectly fine by us. So you'll see, though, here in the divisions, you know, the admin department has gone up $196,000. You know, that's salary, expenses, that's a large number there, right? 5.7 million. That pays the Winnipesaukee River Basin Fund, which is about $4 million a year and something like 60 to 65% of our whole expense budget, okay? Good news on that point is that our rate allocation model with the Winnipesaukee River Basin program has continued to go down over the last couple of years, even though our population has increased. We've spent a lot of this capital money we were talking about on inflow and infiltration, whether it be a study or a lining program or sewer main replacement. So even though we have more connections, more and more connections onto the sewer system, they're finding through their meters that we are actually giving them less and less flow. It's a really good feeling for the sewer department to have. So outside of admin, we've trimmed these things as tightly as we can. Hardly any contingency, things like that, okay? So the thing I want to touch on, though, it's a great idea, but it's not sustainable, right? As far as what do we do next time that we need to draw down for capital projects, because that budget is basically a net zero. So while we're, you know, let's say drawing down a $2 million budget to $1 million so we can do $1 million of capital, that $2 million budget that's now one is not growing. So we're going to be in a tight spot should we, you know, have an issue and need to cover expenses before revenues come in. And when we run out of that capital, there's not a mechanism for more. I want to, again, highlight how our costs are going down comparatively to other municipalities, meaning we're doing a good job with the flow, but it's requiring that capital fund to make that happen. So really, I think another rate increase, I know that's a terrible thing to discuss in this room, but I think at some point it needs to be revisited. We are, as a sewer department, rate-wise, in the bottom 50% of the state. Depending on which model you look at, you know, it's 30% or 45% in the bottom half. And yet, I would say, with 65% of our costs going to the treatment plant and 19 pump stations, that we have a very sophisticated, expensive system. Yeah, our rate model only went up went down an additional 1.5% this year. You know, something that's ongoing, it's worth mentioning, is our connections with Guilford, our neighbor Guilford. So their sewer flow comes into the city in quite a few different areas. Of them that are actually coming into the city's system that we take part in, there's the Blackbrook pump station. And while we were doing the research on that, we uncovered that the WRBP had a meter in the wrong location in the south. So we discovered that about a year and a half ago, and it just got really input into the new model just the past couple months. So unfortunately, Guilford's going to have some issues trying to figure out with the way that their rate increase has been, because it's something like 7 or 8% more of the plant, so their rate increase is going to be pretty significant. Yeah,
Councilor Susie.
I would think.
If I remember right, when you came here once before about this, you explained to us how you found these discrepancies.
Yeah.
It was really just the way the flow was being measured, or the pump was put in the wrong position. And we found that over the years, we've been paying a lot more than we should have.
Yes.
And now we're going the other way.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so there was about 80,000 gallons a day coming from that portion of Guilford, between 70 and 80,000 that we were paying for since 2018. And, you know, we're just, okay, it is what it is. We fixed it. Onwards and upwards. But yeah, there was a fork in the road, and instead of coming down the main throat, it was coming off a side leg. But, you know, there's also the Blackbrook pump station, which is a station. There is technically an MOU on it. The flow comes from Guilford, goes into that station. Guilford pays for 32% of the electric bill on that station only. When I first started, I thought that was weird, because I'd learned how we all pay for the WRBP stations. So, you know, another station, let's say the Winnisquam pump station there, you know, let's say 50% of the flow is Laconia. So I pay 50% of the flow, the electric bill, capital expenses, man hours, etc. And that model there is not the way it is on the Blackbrook pump station. So I've been working with an engineering firm for quite a while now. We're about done on what that should look like there and how to present it. And when I have something to deliver, I'll be meeting with Kirk on that. So we had the $3 million bond. We do have some other expenses in the loan and bond department. Some clean water SRF loans that we're paying off. They were for the Elm Street Sewer Project, the Northern Lakeport Sewer Project. We've applied for another one last year and again this year, which would be the third leg over there. We call it the Washington Street Sewer Project. But there's another $2.5 million worth of sewer main replacement up in that neck of the woods. You know, we were just looking at our pipe inspection reports the other day, which is really pretty interesting. And we have a lot of bad pipe over there, and it's small. So we're targeting that. We've also thought about, because there's about 1,000 feet that's very, very poor in condition. And so we're going to be looking at whether or not it makes sense to do that kind of in-house, outside of the loan, because it's costing us money by not doing it. So we're looking at that. Other things we did this year, so we upgraded the Hillcrest pump station. The pumps were never really sized correctly. So we got new pumps and controls over there into a new wet well. We've been eyeing the Briarcrest force main replacement for several years now and are trying to time it appropriately with when they do their road work. If we have to open cut the force main replacement, we'd like to do it when they're doing their roads. It will save us a couple $100,000. So they're actively paving in there, and they know we're working together on it. Meanwhile, we're looking at more creative ways to try and replace the force main, combination of pipe bursting and directional drilling. It's challenging because there's all of their infrastructure over there is underground. So trying to locate something with sensors is difficult because of all the conflicting noise that's underground. They have underground electricity, communications, water, sewer, drainage, etc. The inflow and infiltration study, we picked that up again. It's ongoing. That helps us identify, where we should spend our time and money from the capital side of the house. I wrap our condition assessment into that. So we camera inspect and clean 20% of the city every year. And we move around in sections. And from there, we're given a really amazing report. So they take, let's say there's a hole in a pipe and water's coming in. That would be a 5 being the worst, 1 being negligible. And so we target those types of issues in pipe first, rather than where it may be easiest to get to. Regardless of where it may be located, we target those areas of inflow and infiltration. And so we're developing that right now for our lighting program. And we've talked about a sewer ordinance update for a couple of years as well. We're kicking it back and forth with Underwood engineers, and it's quite close. Questions on sewer? I get it, it's not very exciting, but it's good stuff.
Until it
Yeah.
doesn't work, and then it's really exciting.
That's right, then it gets really exciting.
Council Susie.
I know that you talked a lot, but we're probably a couple of years out. But have you started looking at what the influx or how you're gonna manage the flow coming out of the old state school property in that development?
Yeah, they managed to find a way to gravity drain that whole development down into the 48-inch WRBP's main. So it'll go down to the Winnisquam pump station and be pumped downstream.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Just sidebar on this, so we do utility mark out in-house, right? We mark out drainage and sewer. And it's not always easy to get the green paint on the ground in the correct place because of what kinds of records we have. So we have a GIS technician. His name is Paul L. Schultz, and he's really, really good at his job, and he helps out all the different departments in various ways. So he's got a GPS, I call it his wizard staff. He's got a GPS staff, and so when we finish a project or there's a new development or something like that, he can go out there and place it on the center of a manhole and mark it in his tablet, and then it can go onto the GIS. So if you go onto the Laconia website, you go down to the bottom, and there's maps, and there's stormwater map and sewer map, and that's how these things are created. So the utility mark out right now is just in paper form, and they're quite vague. There's no north arrow. There's rarely a street reference, so you made me think of it when you said it gets really exciting when it doesn't work, because when there's a mark out in the wrong spot. It just happened this morning where we marked it out according to our drawings, and a utility pole went right through the sewer main. Those are the kinds of exciting things that they get to work on when, you do the best with the records that you have, and so we're in a process of trying to, I guess, better digitize those things, and certainly we are with new stuff that comes in. Again, Paul's got a really good handle on how the information comes in, how to check it, how to layer it onto the maps. It's a pretty handy thing for for us, for developers, you can't see the water on there because of, what kind of regulations as far as water GIS?
Something, I don't know, it's PUC, but you're not supposed to show where everything's located for contamination or anything.
Right. So for like security reasons, you know, the water department's map, you know, is not available to the public, but sewer and drainage is. Okay. And then we have the Internal Service Fund, which we call the ISF. And that is our vehicles, our fleet. Real quick before I get into this, so when we started our new DPW facility study, you know, which is a long conversation for another day, but you know, one thing that they really kind of did a double take on was the size of our fleet. They said, wow, you know, it's a really big facility. It's only 10% smaller than Rochester's, you know, and expensive. And I went, yeah, but it's a really big fleet. And so in trying to understand why the fleet is so significant in size, and when I say fleet, I mean all city-owned vehicles. It's not the mileage, it's the density. That, according to the engineers and architects and planners at Weston Sampson who do this, you know, they say that that's typically what drives that. So when we get into fleet and get into size, there's a good reason for the scale and number. It's also very expensive. So, surprise, diesel and gas has gone up a lot, right? Almost 30% projected increase on diesel, a 19% increase on gasoline. That's coming from the Federal Energy's information. You know, that's when we go through a couple 100,000 gallons of fuel in a year, that's a good chunk of the expense. You know, the staff, the 3 mechanics, you know, it's salary, you know, we can plan for that. You know, the age of the fleet is what determines how expensive things get outside of that. So historically, there's been a lot of good turnover of vehicles, right? You know, there was 4 new, between the sewer department and highway, 4 new trucks that were within a half-ton to a full ton. Actually, that includes the mechanic truck as well. You know, CDL vehicles, what we call our 6-wheelers, those are kind of a 2-year purchase project because of the expense. So for example, we already have a cab sitting in the lot with no body in the back. So we kind of piece them that way. That's how we replace those large plow trucks. We've got 2 others that are getting pretty up there in age. As far as priorities, you know, last few months I've been asking a lot of questions. I've gotten into the new loader, I've gotten into sidewalk plows. I'm trying to really experience what they're experiencing. And, you know, the 2 backhoes that we have are old and tired, and they break a lot, and when they break, it's expensive. You know, any kind of big iron like that, it's not a cheap fix. Last time it broke, we had to put it on a trailer and bring it down. I mean, it was dead in the water. And so then you've got something that's inoperable trying to get it on a trailer, and that's a job in itself. Guilford just got a new, it's not quite a backhoe, but it's a wheel-operated mini excavator. You know, it's maybe a 10-ton excavator that is on wheels, and you can cruise down the street. You can turn and pivot. You know, anyone who's operated a backhoe and got really excited about it and then jumped into an excavator, I was like that. When I first got into a backhoe, I was like, compared to a shovel, it was amazing. And then you get into an excavator and it's just blows the doors off of it. From, you know, safety, speed, efficiency, et cetera. So when we get to the point, we're not there. When we get to the point of replacing one of those backhoes, that will be recommended, is a setup like that. The sidewalk plows. A lot of sympathy from me in these guys who run these things. They are violent. We put new seats in them. That was something I'd asked for a couple of years ago. We got new seats in them. They're more comfortable. They don't have an active braking system. Basically, by easing off on the throttle, they will slow down automatically. But I've got gray hair, and they're as old as I am. So they're from the early 80s. We have 3 of them. You know, if you're going in a straight line and nothing's in your way, they do a good job of opening up the trail, the sidewalk. You know, they're V-plows, they open it up, but as we've experienced this past winter, around the schools, intersections, anywhere where there's heavy pedestrian traffic, you need a blower. You know, with the snowbanks as high as they are in our traditional New England winter, you gotta get it out of the pathway. It's really the only way to do it. So there's Bobcats that have that implement. Our Bobcats top out about 8 miles an hour, so it's a slow endeavor to get from point A to point B. Fortunately, a lot of places will lease these kinds of sidewalk tractors, which means they come off of lease and they're for purchase. We have a great mechanic shop. These guys can fix anything. They just need the parts and the time. They can fix anything. It's pretty amazing. So, you know, I think a secondhand purchase for something like that suits our needs would be great. And even they test drove a new one this past winter, and they're about 90 grand. You know, so they're manageable. And we know how important, based on our own experience in the field or phone calls we get, we know how important clear sidewalks are. Some of the larger items that we're forecasting out into the future, another plow truck. We'd already, oh, that's still on there, but we got a new loader. It's a John Deere, it's a lease, it's a nice little machine. This sweeper, we just put $7,000 into the sweeper. Yeah, so when things break on these things, it's $5 grand, you know. The multi-hog is what you guys see doing probably the most efficient snow blowing that's out there. It's an expensive piece of equipment. It does it all very, very well, though. Questions?
Councilor Susie.
This one here is more of the city manager. On page 54, vehicle maintenance and repairs and vehicle replacement. It looks like a big swap in the way you did your accounting, all the numbers. Vehicle maintenance and repair and vehicle replacement. I'm looking at line, it's a public work,
26 and 27. Which has changed because of where we put the stuff, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, it's just, all the money's still there. That was one of the things I talked about earlier. Some of the lines moved in the new accounting system.
Okay.
So it's all still there.
okay, I was just wondering why I saw that.
And just as a reminder, the vehicle maintenance and repair and the vehicle replacement is paid for by all of our departments.
Right,
And it's shared throughout, assessing as an example, they use a vehicle, they don't pay much into it. Fire, police, DPW, they pay a ton of money into it, so, that's just an accounting thing.
okay, I saw that and I was just,
Yep,
I
no,
highlighted
appreciate
one.
it.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Last but not least, the Finance Department budget presentation.
Turn my phone off since I don't need it to see the screen anymore.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Well, nothing else, I know how to clear a room.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Mayor, do you want me to start in, or shall we wait for Kirk to return?
You can start, go ahead and start.
He has heard this before.
I'm sure he has.
Oh, let's see. I guess I should pull up mine and not his, huh? Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. You all know me, I'm Glenn Smith, I'm the Finance Director. I'm standing here wearing that hat and also my Welfare Director hat. So we'll be talking about the Finance Department, the Welfare Department, and then touching on general fund revenues as part of this presentation. And I know we're saying this a lot this year, but because there are new faces at the table, just lead off by saying, we call it a finance department. I kind of think of it as an administrative services department because we do more than finance. We also run the purchasing function for the city, HR function, risk management, and IT are all part of the finance department. 13 functional areas. I'm going to jump around a bit from one to the other, but please ask about anything as we go through that. Within the finance part of what we do, there are 6 budget areas that are outlined here. Of these, 3 of the 6 are what I call non-discretionary. And what I mean by that is that the spending level is decided by factors outside of the finance department. Employee benefits, of course, that's set by federal law, state law, defined in the CBAs as far as what kind of benefits the employees receive. We budget for it here for many, but not all of the departments, but it shows up in the finance department. Insurance is set by our contracts largely with Primex, and that's what that is. And then debt service, of course, our debt service expense is decided by what bonds you approve and what rates you approve and such, and we pay for those bonds out of here. I'm not going to touch too much on those non-discretionary parts of the budget, with the exception of debt service. We'll cover a little bit of that towards the end of this presentation. But again, if you have any questions about that, please be happy to tell you what that is. Oh yes, and as it says on this slide, non-discretionary accounts for about 80% of the finance department budget. So we're going to be kind of focusing on the other 20%. Major changes in the last year that we've implemented. You've heard it referred to several times as part of these presentations. We have upgraded the accounting system for the city. First upgrade in a quarter century, much overdue, replacing a system that was a good workhorse of a system, but as we all know, the abilities of what a technology-based system can do have changed a lot since 2000. And we needed to come up to speed with that. We've improved the efficiency, we've improved the accuracy. It's more comprehensive. For the first time, we have an accounting system where we can actually see the documents that are being paid for in the accounting system. When, under the old system, we had the accounts over here, we had the documents stored here, and they just didn't really talk to each other. We had this will be the first time actually the city has an HR system that is tied in with the accounting system. Much more efficient all the way around. Got the photo here is what from the old paper-based system that we no longer use. That is 1 week's worth of AP, of bill paying. I kind of did the math, and if over the course of the year, that stack of papers that we processed through the finance department would have been 17 feet high. So we've replaced that with something automated. And before I leave this slide, I also need to say, when we started this process, our vendor, they're called Tyler, used to be called Munis. Some of you might have heard the Munis name. It's a group it's a software that's used by many municipalities throughout New Hampshire. Concord, Keene, Rochester, Portsmouth all use Munis, and now we do too. They told us to expect about 1,000 hours of staff time to do the transition. I think I was probably a bit low, but that transition is almost done now, and it could not have happened without the staff that we have in place today in finance and in the other departments. Everybody came together as a team, and everybody worked well together, solving problems, bouncing ideas one off the other. Couldn't have happened without the staff that we have in place. And I just need to say that as part of this presentation. Other changes in the department, we've aligned, throughout the process, we took advantage of the change to a new accounting system to fix certain things in the budget, which you've heard the Public Works Director allude to just a few minutes ago, and other folks in their items. The idea being, we're gonna change the accounts, we might as well fix the problems that we've seen. One of those is that we've realigned the tax function, which has and traditionally always been in the finance department. But as you remember, several years ago, we combined the city clerk and the city tax collector roles into one position. And that is managed out of the clerk's office by Katie Gargano, and she does a great job. But half of her budget was in finance department, because that's where the tax was still budgeted. So we moved that out of finance. When we get to the, look at the fiscal office, you're going to see a big decrease in salaries. We can take credit for a portion of that, but the other portion is just moving the salary expense from finance over to tax. And we streamlined the department organization. This came before this council a few months ago. We took advantage of a retirement to kind of switch around the various positions that we had, and we're able to save about $30,000 a year as part of that. That cost reduction is showing up, of course, for the first time in this budget. We're going to jump right now into the IT portion of the budget, because really that's where we're seeing most of the change, and frankly, that's where we're seeing most of the increase. So let's just run straight into that. That's on page 35 of your budget document, and you'll see an increase of just over $100,000 in this division. And that is dealing almost exclusively with licensing costs, which I'll get into in the next couple of slides. And those licensing costs are on page 34, where they list off the individual licenses that we're buying. And again, we'll get into that in a little bit as to why that is happening and why I think ultimately it's good for the city. First, let's provide a little context for that. This is a graphic of the city's IT network. The network serves 15 locations, more than 700 devices, 400 pieces of software that are either used by the end user or used by the IT staff to manage the network, and 350 email boxes. Delving a little bit into the hardware portion, what we see here is an increase in the number of devices that are run through the city, through the IT, increasing very dramatically over the last couple of years. 18% change in the number of devices that we're using in the IT network. The largest increase that we're seeing this year is in mobile devices. Mostly some of those are cell phones. Most of them are pads, iPads, tablets. We now have tablets in all the ambulances, for example. That's something that just didn't exist a few years ago. We had an upgrade grant funded, but once a grant puts a tablet in the place, IT then has to maintain it in elections. So, and we saw that in the last election. We saw a good improvement of service, but also a demand on the IT network. We're seeing a lot of changes actually that were alluded to in both presentations tonight from the water department. and they're bringing their SCADA system back into line, and also bringing the water department into the city network in a more real sense. And that is, we'll get to this a little bit later, but we've had a water department that is managed by IT, but it's really its own system that has a connection through a public line to the city hall. Anytime you have a connection like that, that is a security risk. So what we are in the final stages of doing, and the cutoff hopefully will be next week, we've installed a dark fiber line that, well, actually we've extended the one that already goes to DPW to lead up to Union Avenue that will connect with the water so that they're really truly part of the network. Things like that. And I'll take a lot of the other increases are in things like printers and scanners, and many of those are tied to the new finance system. We had a system in the past where everything was done, as Wes Anderson used to say, the stubby pencil method. And when we were done doing everything by hand, we would then scan it all into the computer. Well, we looked at it and said, why are you scanning it at the end of the system? You should be doing that at the beginning of the system. And now we're doing that, but that does take equipment also. We've got a couple of other systems that are coming online soon. A few weeks ago, Chief Canfield stood here and talked about an increase that he's getting through a grant to camera systems and security cameras throughout the downtown area. That's a great grant, a great program, but it is something that will fall back onto our computer network with a lot of video feeds, which tie up a lot of bandwidth, which place an additional strain on the system. Not saying that's a bad thing, but just saying that we have to account for that as we plan for IT as we go in the future. Touching base a little bit on the growth of the network. Just a quick list of departments that have a substantial increase in its reliance on the IT network, often replacing paper systems over the last few years. Elections, code, planning, you can now apply for a permit online. Used to be you couldn't do that. Additional use of the network. Finance, fire, library, DPW. As the director was talking about the using GIS more to locate where items are in the sewer system. All of that feeds into the IT network and provides an additional strain on the network. Parking kiosks, again, talking about the increased use of tablets. That's how those are managed now over at the Weirs, is through tablets. One thing I'm really proud of is that our phone system is now no different from our computer system. Reason I'm proud of that is that it's a lot more flexible. I can literally take my phone off my desk, go home, plug it in to my home network, and it'd be just like I'm at work. But the thing I really like is the fact that we used to spend thousands of dollars a month on phones when we were using the copper label. $845 a month is what we pay now citywide for our phone system. So saving a little bit of money there. The goals of the IT, and I tell you, I'm not going to spend this long on the other parts of finance, so don't worry, is to secure the network and all the data in the network from cyber attack. That is goal number one. And that is where we would like to focus most of our time. And we'll get back to that. Enhance the security and efficiency and cost effectiveness by creating a single city network. Jumping back to what I was referring to with the water department. We were all part of the same system, but we were not part of the same network. There were the various elements that existed in various parts of the city that spoke to each other, but they were all different elements that were harder to manage. Water is only the latest. Last year, we brought the library into our system, and it's much more secure that way. I like to say it's like, you know, it's like, it's typical for systems that grew kind of organically over decades. You know, there was not really a lot of thought into how they should all come together. Develop and implement a plan for the responsible growth in the network to meet the current and future needs for all city departments, especially needed with the growth in the state school session. Just the Public Works Department just earlier this year brought in a new sewer pump station up on White Oaks Road. That has to be connected to the network. There's that kind of growth that's always happening. And then respond to call for service in a responsible and timely manner. Your standard help desk items. My printer isn't working, my credit card reader doesn't connect. And those are the kind of things that we spend a lot of time on. But number one is security. It's happening, and it's happening here in New Hampshire. And I'll, about to go through a couple of slides. Won't spend a lot of time on it, just kind of remind us all of the risk. We all read about Newfound and what happened in Newfound up in the Laconia Daily Sun. They are just now getting their data back. I can't imagine really what it's like, and I hope I never have to live through having to operate for 2 years without any financial data. But that's what they went through in their ransomware program. Peterborough famously lost about $2 million to cyber criminals a couple years ago. They were able to recover about half of that, but it's a process. Salem has been hit. Enfield has been hit. Enfield, I think, is kind of interesting because they're very happy that they only lost $742,000. And anytime you can say only $742,000 is a problem. And about a year ago, Hillsborough County got hit. They still have not recovered from that. But that was a major attack that crashed all of their systems and stole all of their data. That we just don't want that to happen here. One of the things that is really keeping us from making sure it doesn't happen here is the staffing. IT is staffed with 2 full-time people, same as it was 10 years ago. Back when we had a lot fewer devices, a lot simpler cybersecurity issues, let's just say, and a lot less items that were managed through IT. They respond to about 142 service tickets per month. Those tickets, as I said, my printer isn't working, my credit card thing isn't working. This piece of software that was just installed doesn't like this piece of software that's already on my computer. What do I do? They maintain the network and the equipment, they monitor security, and they generally keep things running. Maintaining means they implement patches that are periodically put out by the software folks against these cybersecurity threats. The problems we're having is that there is little redundancy in IT. We have 2 people. They don't go on vacation at the same time. Hopefully they don't get sick at the same time. So far, we have not had a case where one is on vacation and the other one gets sick. If that happens, we'd be in big trouble. There's somewhat of a security risk if they're out trying to fix the printers in the library when a security alert gets sent. They may not see it right away because they're out doing their help desk functions. Eliminated availability for after-hours calls. You see that in this meeting here whenever we lose the feed. Luckily, one of those 2 people lives in Lakeport, so he can put his dinner fork down, come down and fix the items, but that wears on folks time and again. And this will only get worse as we continue to rely more on IT network. I'm standing here now, saying that I think as we sit here today, IT is short-staffed by about one person. This one person, I think we're about where we need to be to handle help desk. This new person would handle all the other things, looking at network administration, doing the cybersecurity, looking at new applications and integrating those into the system. We're making do with what we have, and we're doing a good job of that, but I think that's kind of where we need to be. Particularly as we manage the new software licensing that you see in the budget that is constantly on the increase as we add new functions to the IT network. I'm getting ready to leave IT if anybody has any questions about that.
Good.
We're gonna zoom through from here on, and I promise you. Fiscal office is a net reduction of about $89,000 of that. I'd like to take credit for it, but $47,000 is just a transfer from our budget to Katie's budget, and that is for the tax function. Speaking of which, I understand we all got presents today from the tax office.
Oh, I got mine the other day, like 2 days ago.
Yeah.
Oh, did
email.
you?
Yeah,
He's special.
wasn't a nice present, but.
It's pretty much a hold the line budget for the fiscal office, given everything else that we've said. So I don't really have a lot to say for it, just by saying that pays for accounting, billing, budgeting, HR, payroll, purchasing, and the staffing of IT. If you look at the IT budget in your budget books, it is just the operating costs, not the staff. The staff is covered in this budget. Under debt, the budget includes no new bonds for FY27. Currently, the general fund is carrying 23 bonds, counting both the city and the school, and at a cost to the general fund, within our general fund, of $2.8 million. This represents a 6% decrease from the current year, and we're not retiring any bonds in FY28, in FY27. That will come up in FY28 is when we retire our next bond. And it's estimated the city is utilizing about 13% of its debt capacity. I say an estimate because that is based off numbers that have not yet been audited, but I don't expect that to change. One of the things that's new this year, if you look at the very end of your budget book, behind the salary schedule, there is a debt schedule that gives you a lot more information on the bonds, what ones they have, the maturity, what is outstanding as of 7/1, and then behind that there's a chart that kind of covers when the existing bonds will mature, and the estimate I just referred to for the capacity of the borrowing capacity. Moving on to general fund revenues, starting on page 12 of the book. There's a couple of things that kind of jump out there. Overall, what we're seeing though is we expect revenues to go down by more than 10% based on what they are in the current year. And that is almost exclusively dealt with payments that are coming in from outside sources that were one-time payments that had to be acknowledged in the current year, but just are not repeating in the future year, which I think caused our city manager to do a lot of scrambling as those things happen. That is a little bit offset by increases in charges for services that we get, which Nate referred to as we're talking about the DPW budget. That is where we acknowledge the transfer station revenues and the C&D revenues on that. So that's kind of where we're standing on the revenues. Does anybody have any questions on the revenue side of the budget?
Good.
Coming into the home stretch. Welfare. taking off my finance hat, putting on my welfare hat. Starts on page 67 of your book. The reason we do welfare is to fulfill the city's legal obligation under RSA 165. RSA 165 defines what we are required to do for welfare. The implementation of those, of that RSA is defined by the welfare guidelines approved by this body. The last time we did a comprehensive review of the guidelines was in 2020. Maybe time, may not be time, that's kind of your decision on that. But I kind of label this as non-discretionary, since the RSA doesn't really give us a lot of latitude. It's very definite is what we have to do. I kind of like this, this slide because I can guarantee you that if it were not for our nonprofit partners, we would be paying a lot more for welfare. There's a reason when you look at the welfare budget, you don't see payments for food, you don't see payments for medical, you don't see payments for clothing, you don't see payments for household supplies, and that is because it is covered by these other people. And I just need to acknowledge that it's us working as part of a team with that. And there we go. Welfare is staffed by one person. Used to be two. We were able to kind of restructure that about the time that the pandemic hit. And a lot of the welfare tasks got taken off our shoulders as the state temporarily took those over. We've managed to keep it at one person, and I think that is a manageable level for us. But the thing we need to remember that, I just want to acknowledge to the board, is that that's a welfare technician. We have no case manager. The city has no mental health professionals, and we all know the relationship between mental health issues and homelessness in the city. We are not equipped to address those. Again, stepping back to our nonprofit partners that we work through with those. We have no patient advocate. We have people who are going in and out of the hospital all the time. We're not staffed to address that either. And I'm not saying we should be. I'm just acknowledging that we're not. No social worker, no direct service provision. We don't own a halfway house. We don't own a shelter. And again, that's a good thing. I'm not saying we should, but just acknowledging that we don't have that. And no geriatric care person. The budget proposes an increase in $27,000 in vendor payments to meet current demand. And I will say that kind of assumes that current demand, keep our fingers crossed, will go down slightly next year.
$27,000 in vendor payments to who?
Mostly it's for people mostly it's for room rentals. So we have some folks that we deal with, and frankly, we get a very good rate on rooms where we can put people up. And I'll be getting a little bit into that in the next slide too. This slide kind of provides a little bit of a breakdown in answer to your question. And what it shows is that, so the various categories we pay for, according to the RSA, if anybody is in need, indigent at the time that they pass, the city is responsible for burying them. We have under the RSA, we have no choice in that. Other items are mostly related to some sort of shelter provision. Electricity, motel, hotel, motel, hotel would mean keeping somebody in place for a weekend or for one night. Utilities, oil, natural gas, propane, rent, security deposit, shelter, etc. Difference between that is rent is what we pay folks to stay where they are. And a lot of times that is just a lot easier than having them kicked out of where they are, and now they're homeless, and now we have to pay to put them up somewhere else. Those tend to be shorter-term commitments than they are. But between rent and shelter, which is where we provide housing for people who do not have housing, accounts for 93% of everything we spend on welfare. I don't really see that changing. We can keep a closer eye on the population and try to manage that, but unless there is a meaningful assistance to the various populations that make up this population, people with the mental health issues or substance abuse issues along those lines, we don't really see much change in that. And that would have to happen, I think, at the state or federal level, not at the local level. Or developing of lower cost housing options, which might be able to happen at the local level, but that's a big project. And that kind of gets us into this. I kind of thought this was an interesting slide where we're looking at the vouchers that we've issued for shelter in FY19, the last full year before the pandemic, and last year. And we're seeing a couple interesting things here. First, with number of vouchers increased from 27 in FY19 to 155 last year. I am not entirely convinced that that is due to, it's probably due to a slight increase in number of people we serve, but it's more aligned with the fact that we used to support people for 6 weeks, for 2 months. And now we are supporting them for who knows how long. At the end of last month, we were providing shelter for 12 clients. The amount of time that we've been serving those people range from 34 days up to 699 days. 699 days. The average length was 246 days. And these are people, for the most part, who are waiting to get into a either an elder program or some kind of state facility, which is really where they should be because of the services that they need. But those programs are just not being offered right now. Or rather, they are at capacity. So when they're at capacity, it falls to us. But that's kind of what you were seeing in the number of vouchers. Interestingly enough, the cost per voucher in FY19 was $122 per voucher. And I've got 2 phrases that explain that. First one is Belknap House, and the second one is Cary House. Those facilities were not at capacity with long waiting lists back in 2019, and now they are. And when they are, the law doesn't say we can turn our back. The law says you still have to provide housing, and that is where we're seeing the cost of the average voucher. The average voucher now is over $1,000. And to get kind of idea of where we're keeping people now, we have I think a really good relationship with the vendor. Costs us about $1,200 per client per month. So when you see the average is just over 1,000, you can see that the rest of what we're doing is not costing all that much. Just a little bit of information, like I alluded to, on that population of the people that we're helping in the long term. 7 of those cases, elderly and disabled. 1 person is hopefully not going to be there that long, recovering from surgery, which is kind of what welfare is for, right? You're living paycheck to paycheck. You fall and break your leg. You can't work for a few months. You come in and get assistance. 2 of those people are working right now. They're just not making enough to get their own place, and 2 of them are looking for work. But that's kind of the population we're dealing with And we don't really see that changing over the last year or kind of moving forward unless somehow the logjam of people going to other places, somehow that breaks. And that finishes my presentation. Any questions either about IT, fiscal, welfare, revenues, or anything else?
Can't think of anything at the moment. Seeing none.
Before you adjourn, I just have
Yep.
a quick thing for you. On Monday night, at 6 o'clock, we have our final two budget presentations. We always, the week after that, so it'd be the 15th, we always pencil that date aside for if you want department heads to come back for further follow-up. I don't remember the last time we used that, so that is not something I schedule. If you guys need it for some reason, you'll let me know, and we can get it scheduled. So I don't need to know today, just wanted to let you know that. Monday night, we'll also have, and I'm just saying this because I know we have a couple new people here. We have carry forwards will be on there, so it's stuff that department heads are saying, I got this project I'm still working on, I need the money. So it has to go to a public hearing, so all Monday night will be requesting to go to a public hearing, and we'll explain the carry forwards. As well as the first reading of the budget, the resolution for the budget. That's requesting to go to a public hearing. What that is, it's the budget that I presented to you. That's what you'd be pushing forward to public hearing. Then the time comes for you guys to start making your cuts, adds, all those changes we make. And that comes, so technically after the Monday meeting, the second meeting after that, you could approve the budget. It very rarely happens at that next meeting because you still have a lot of conversations to have, all that. But so just again, because we have a few new people on the council, I just wanted to kind of lay out that's how that all works. So that's all.
Excellent.
May I, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, Councilor Glenn.
I know we had asked for a detailed school budget. Will we
yep,
get that?
Let me,
Because that may be the callback for that meeting you
okay,
indicated.
yep, let me, make a note, and I haven't got that, let me get that.
Councilor Susie.
Kirk, one question on, I know that Glenn is asking for one more person in IT. Did you approve that in your recommended budget?
No.
You did not?
And to be clear, it's not in the recommended budget, nor was it in the budget that I sent to Kirk. I know how things are.
I understand that.
And
My
so-
biggest concern is the cybersecurity side. That was it.
Yeah, and I
Right.
think it's a valid.
I'd like to piggyback off of that. I do think that you're light in IT and that we should be proactive in looking for a network-centric IT person. I'm from that background, and I think the city would benefit in terms of efficiency as well, to having a dedicated network-centric person on board.
I think
No,
the
we
investment
have-
would be well worth it.
We have two excellent people in IT right now, and they do more than pull their weight, but they are the first ones that will tell you they are not network administrators.
Yep.
And they've said that, so I appreciate that. I also do, while I've got the mic again, all those cybersecurity risk vectors, welcome to the team. Now that you have city email addresses, you're now under that umbrella. So, so be careful where you click. You are now all enrolled in our monthly cybersecurity trainings. And also you'll be part of the cybersecurity testing that we do. So please take that seriously. And I will say, I have found it, the tips that they give you in those trainings are as applicable for our own personal IT footprint as they are for the city IT footprint. So please read those when they come through. And, because frankly, if somebody hacks one of your accounts, and then they send a note to Kirk, which legitimately is coming from one of your accounts, you know, that could be how that could work into that type of things.
I just don't answer emails.
I am famous for this, not with our current mayor, but in the past, I would get emails, you know, the typical email.
hey, I need a gift card to give to the city manager, can you go blah, blah, blah. I'd pick up the phone, call, did you really send this? And the answer has always been no. So, Mayor Boards, you might get that call from me in the future.
I think the training that is provided when you set up your city email address is thorough and quite good. And I've been using it for several weeks now, and I have been hit with a test that I was able to thwart and send the IT guys' ways. So they're doing a great job.
Glad to hear that. Thank you. I'll pass that on.
Right. I think we're good. Have a great night. We'll close the meeting at 8:06 PM.